Hi, this is Garibay, and today we are going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about recognizing your Obi-Wan moment. All right. So I got a problem on my channel, right? So my channel is about telling you how to do Dungeons and Dragons right? And that's my goal. I'm like, hey, you're doing Dungeons and Dragons wrong, get it right. And that starts with understanding what Dungeons and Dragons is, and I have a unique view on what Dungeons and Dragons is. But I give advice on Dungeons and Dragons, right? Now, my Sunday game, after 2.5 years, just exploded apart. The whole thing went boom, and pieces and people went flying in every direction, right? So why? And you know what? Hey, I this ain't my first rodeo. I speak publicly, and I understand that people are going to come at you in the comments for every little thing, like every little thing, right? And so I saw this coming a mile away, and sure enough, it took about a week for it to hit. Now, actually, I do want to say, I explained to you, I'm transparent, right? Day one, I was like, oh my gosh, my game fell apart. I'm really raw this week. And I put that out to the world, and I couldn't believe how kind people were in the comments. There were a couple sharp edges here and there, but overall, I couldn't believe it. I thought people were actually like a little bit tender with me, and I was like very thankful. So I want to say thank you to all of you, right? But somebody came at me in comments, and they were like, Scott, how can, they came and say, Scott, you're wrong. You should do it this way, right? And I'm like, no, you're wrong. And they're like, well, listen, Scott, my game's been going on for 4 or 5 years now, and it's continuing to go. My game didn't fall apart, and your campaign did just fall apart. So I'm right, you're wrong. Nice try. I'm going to explain to you. And I did. Right in the comments, I explained it to this person. I'm going to explain it to you right now, right? And I said to that person, I was like, my campaign falling apart is more valuable than your game together. And that is the truth. That is the truth of it, according to me. So in my humble opinion, that is the truth. That's the best way to say it. Okay. All right. So why on earth would my campaign be more valuable falling apart than his campaign, than his game, right? And that's what it is. Mine is a campaign, right? And it's a campaign for two things. It's a Dungeons & Dragons campaign, and it's a campaign to improve every single person at the table, to make sure that they learn, grow, and change every time they sit at the table that is mine, right? It is a campaign for life improvement as well as a Dungeons & Dragons campaign. I don't run games, right? You run games, I don't, right? And I'm trying to get you to run campaigns, Dungeons & Dragons campaigns that are campaigning to make everybody at the table a better human being, because that is the purpose of Dungeons & Dragons to me, not fun. Fun is not the purpose of Dungeons & Dragons. I'm the only person on the internet telling you that, right? I am completely aware, but I'm telling you that is not the purpose. And that's why you keep slamming into walls and having problems, because you don't understand this, right? Now, I have a problem right now, and I need to explain that to you. And I explain, and so the question is, and this person brought up a completely valid point. They're like, you should be listening to me and not me listening to you. Now, the reality is, quite literally, that person listens to me every single day, right? And I don't listen to their stuff, right? Not because their stuff isn't, if you think that the point of Dungeons and Dragons is fun, go listen to other commentators, right? Like, but if you're seeking to take your Dungeons and Dragons to tier one participation on the dungeon master level and on the dungeon player level, this is the right place for you, right? Like, and the other thing is, honestly, if you just want to have fun with your Dungeons and Dragons, do you need somebody to tell you how to do that? Like, does anybody need instruction on how to have fun? Like, why are you even seeking commentary for that? Like, it's completely unnecessary, right? My take. All right. So why should you listen to someone whose campaign, Dungeons & Dragons campaign, just fell apart, right? And you're like, my game's been going on for a while. Like, so aren't I smarter and better than Scott Garibay? No, you're not. And I'll tell you why. Okay. So here's the thing. So I am now recognizing my Obi-Wan moment, right? So why did my campaign fall apart, and why on earth should I still continue to give people advice even when my campaign just fell apart, right? I'm going to tell you why. All right, here you go, okay? So it's the Obi-Wan moment, okay? All right, so thank you for your patience. I'm getting there, all right? I realized something about myself. I don't friend anyone. and I don't have any friends, right? What I do is I started a campaign, a Dungeons and Dragons campaign in 1982, and I have never stopped running it, right? The reality is all of my campaigns are connected together by a single thread, and each group doesn't know that there was a non-player character going back to that first campaign in 1982, and there is a narrative thread that has gone through every single Dungeons and Dragons campaign that I have ever run. And really what they are doing is these are arcs within a single campaign, and they are within a campaign arc that is part of the one campaign I've been running since 1982, right? And what I realized is I don't, and I need to realize this myself, because this is a time of self-reflection. I don't just let a Dungeons and Dragons campaign blow apart and not, take some time for self-reflection. Do I need to change anything? Do I need to do anything? Do I need to adjust? And now one of the things I am looking at is I'm like, oh, hey, actually, we'll get there. I'm going to keep going. All right, so here's the thing. So basically, I am 100% convinced that no one who has ever been in my campaigns has ever walked away unchanged, not learning, changing, or growing. They have all learned to change and grow. So I'm just going to I'm going to drop a couple things, right? I had a dude in my campaign, and he went to graduate college, right? And he had to finish a huge paper, right? And he failed to do that. He failed to finish it, and he was literally 95% of the way through college, and was very much considering just dropping out, right? And so we did our Dungeons and Dragons campaign, right? Like, we had a session, and after the session, and this happened no less than 24 times, a dozen to 24 times, where we had a heart to heart, and he's like, I don't know, it's frustrating, I don't want to, I've never had to, I've written 2 books, right? Like, I'm like, are you considering quitting college over writing a 20-page paper, right? And the real answer to that was yes, right? And I was like, listen, and this happened after a D&D session. I'm like, get your notes. I'm meeting you at the Chinese restaurant 5 miles from here, and we're going to meet every week for the next 8 weeks, and you're going to finish this thing, right? And every week, all you're going to do is just show me the pages, right? And if you ask me to, I will take a look and I'll read through. But the reality is, I'm an evangelical Christian. This had nothing to do with Christianity, but evangelical Christians, many of us know about accountability partners, and I was just like, I'm your accountability partner, accountable to write some freaking pages this week, right? And we're gonna get together for 8 weeks, and you need to write 3 pages a week, and we're gonna get this done, right? And the reality is, we only met 4 times, right? But each time he was like, here's the 5 pages, here's 7 pages, right? And he wouldn't take a week off, and I would call him and say, get there, let's go, and then I would see him again on Dungeons and Dragons night, and I helped this guy get through college, and that only came because we were together for the Dungeons and Dragons game. And he could tell himself all he wants that he would have finished that thing without me. Who knows? He doesn't get the luxury of knowing, right? He doesn't know. Neither one of us knows if he would have been able to do it without me, right? Because I did help, right? That's real, right? The guy that is not the mechanical player who just, so why did my game fall apart? I'm going to give you my opinion, right? There were 2 forces in nature at that table, right? And he, this guy, my mechanical dungeon master, my mechanical player who was a dungeon master, he's a force of nature, man. And I think what he's like, and I put incredible, rules down. I'm like, 2-hour game, we ain't going over, right? And everyone at the table hated that, right? But I got purposes, I got goals. I'm driving toward those goals, right? And I was like, no cursing at my table, right? And I was like, I just had a ton and this player told me flat out, I want to run 3-hour games, right? And I was like, well, that's nice, but you're at this table. We run 2-hour games, and I get 2 games in per, we run 2-hour sessions, and we have 2 dungeon masters, and we cycle through, and everybody gets a chance, right? And if we go to a 3-hour game, that's 1, and I don't want to get trapped in 3. And when you're hot, you're hot. But when you suck, I don't want to be 2 hours and 20 minutes into a game going, good Lord, I want to get out of here, right? I just don't like getting trapped in games, right? So basically, we got to this point, and I think he realized, he's like, I can stand up my own table. I don't need all this I don't need to follow these rules. I can set up my own table and roll, right? And he could, because I showed him how. That's the reality of it, and this whole game blew apart. I lost friends because of a Dungeons & Dragons game. I would have been invited to this guy's wedding, and you want to know why? Because he met the woman who's going to be his wife at my table, right? Like, I ran a game, and he asked her to go out after the game, right? And that's my point. You do not roll up in a Scott Garibay Dungeons & Dragons session. You don't walk away unchanged, not learning something, and you learn, you change, you grow, period, right? And so I look at these people, and I know for a fact their life would not be the same without me, right? So wait, Scott, so how did everything go wrong, right? Obi-Wan Kenobi. Thank you for your patience. Now we get there, right? So I do not have friends. I run a D&D campaign, and people drop in, and the rest of the world thinks that Dungeons & Dragons is about friendship. And then they end up friending me because they think that's a natural extension of Dungeons & Dragons. I don't need to play Dungeons & Dragons with friends. I need to play Dungeons & Dragons with the best players in the world. That's what I want. And that has turned into friendship many times. In fact, every time, right? I think every person who sits at my table is like, oh yeah, Scott's my friend. Until everything goes south and then we're no longer friends, right? And that's okay too, right? And then why is that okay? Why is it okay for me to end friendships? Here why. I do not take friendship lightly, right? If you are my friend and you call and you say, dude, get your shovel, meet me in the park at 2 a.m., I will be there. That's how I roll. I do not take friendships lightly. So when I am lackluster on you, you're going to know that I am no longer your friend because I put too much on the line with it, right? And frankly, I'm very, very ready, eager to end friendships when there is no more goodwill on either end. And the reason why is I don't want there to be any confusion that when you meet that 2 a.m. meet me in the park with the shovel moment, I ain't your guy anymore because I ended it. I don't let relationships desiccate. I say this is done. Bye, right? And I am suggesting that to you, right? Don't let people wonder if you are their friend. Let them know, right? Because when you are my friend, I will let you know, and when you are not, you will know it, right? So basically, the reality is I don't think I was ever friends with this person. I was a dungeon master. He was a player. Then I was a player. He was a dungeon master. And the reality is there is often, and I understand it, confusion that Scott Garibay is your friend because he's sitting at your Dungeons & Dragons table. It's not really true, right? Because the reality is if you make me choose between Dungeons & Dragons and you, I will always choose Dungeons & Dragons because Dungeons & Dragons has been my boon companion since I was 12. You haven't. That's the reality of it, right? And I need to be honest with that about myself so I can manage my relationships, right? So here's all the way through. So why am I comfortable with this? Why am I comfortable with this way of life, right, which nobody else chooses? And why am I comfortable for telling you I still know more about Dungeons & Dragons and you should listen to me? I don't listen to you, right? Like, here's why. It's the Obi-Wan Kenobi moment, right? Obi-Wan Kenobi was never Luke's friend, right? He was like, hey, I'm going to teach you the ways of the Force, right? You will learn, grow, and change. And Luke Skywalker did. And then there was the Obi-Wan Kenobi moment where Luke Skywalker went, what the heck? You didn't tell me my father was Darth Vader, right? And, oh, look at that, crack. Friendship's broken. Is the friendship broken? Were Obi-Wan and Luke Skywalker ever friends? And that's the issue, is like, when you come to my table, I am looking to learn, grow, and change you, right? I ain't looking to have fun. You could find that noise anywhere, not at my table, right? And honestly, I never want to be that sad sack dungeon master who's like, oh, we cut some goblins in half. Did we have fun? But you can find that anywhere. I'm totally comfortable being the only dude in the world saying Dungeons & Dragons is for learning, growing, and changing. It is a human improvement engine, in my humble opinion, and you will not step to me and you will not step to Dungeons & Dragons without walking away unchanged. You will be changed. forever. And the dude who just walked away from my table, he will never forget me because I put him together with the person that he's going to wife up, period. Right? And so he will always regret, he may regret our relationship in the future, but he will never forget it. Right? And that's where we, and that's where we go, right? And that's why I'm so passionate about this, right? And so the reality is, I had my Obi-Wan Kenobi moment with him. He's like, you keep telling me how to dungeon master. I already know I know how to dungeon master. And frankly, the reason why you know is because you've been sitting at my table for 8 years, right? Like, I taught you everything you knew, man, right? And the reality is, I was always a better dungeon master than him. I don't know if I am now. He's epic. He is epic, right? And I am jealous of the people who sit at his table, right? I'm jealous of the people who get his time. And I honestly believe, not every day. I think right now that guy's happy to be gone from me, right? But I think there's going to be time when he looks back and he's like, there's nobody in my life like Scott Garibay. Amen to that. There won't be, ever again. Guarantee that, right? And I think there'll be days where he misses our friendship. I miss our friendship every day. That dude is epic. I love him to death, and I know he is going to change the world, right? But the reality is, two forces of nature are going to spin apart, right? And the reality is, Obi-Wan was never Luke's friend. That doesn't mean the relationship wasn't good. And that doesn't mean that it was terrible when their relationship broke, right? Luke was furious. Luke was hurt, right? When he found out that Obi-Wan had said, hey, I'm not your friend. I'm not telling you this truth because I need to mold you, right? And that's what he did. He told him the truth when the truth was necessary, right? Which was literally after he died, right? Like, and that's the other thing is that, but the reality is Obi and Luke were never friends. They were adventurers moving with the same momentum and the same force, no pun intended, and the same spirit of adventure. And if you come to my table, if you ain't got a spirit of adventure, you will be gone. I'm not going to put somebody who doesn't have a burning passion for Dungeons and Dragons in front of me, right? And if you are a lackluster player, or if you really just don't love Dungeons and Dragons, I ain't gonna save a space for you, right? You're gonna be gone, right? Now, and so the reality is, Luke and Obi's relationship broke, right? There was just a point where it broke, and I'm comfortable being the Obi-Wan, and I'm recognizing my Obi-Wan moment. All that is my humble opinion. I genuinely I'm in a time of self-reflection. If you have a truth for me, if you have a piece of wisdom for me as I proceed forward, I would love to hear it. Have you ever been the Obi-Wan? Have you been in this position? I'd love to hear it. Also, if you struggle with friendships with Dungeons & Dragons, just like me, I've already gotten some amazing stories on this. I'd love to hear yours. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.